Razorback Nation, welcome back in once again to Razor Recap, brought to you by Scarlet Letter and Jared's Kicking Sauce. We're back to talk about the Texas game this weekend, where unfortunately the Razorbacks come close, but no cigar there in the end as they fall 20-10 at home versus Texas in a game that, honestly, if we're being honest, a lot of people probably expected to come in and be a blowout on Texas's part. Especially this dismantling they had last week against Florida. Arkansas coming off a bye week. We know how the bye week went earlier this season. And then, Travis Williams has this defense all ready to go in this game. They were the reason Arkansas was in this game, flat out, 100%. We were talking a little bit before we got started here. You scrap the Ole Miss LSU games, and Travis Williams has done a phenomenal job this year de-coordinating. But unfortunately, when you're talking about that, you can't scrap those two games. And that was two games where I think, if you look at it ultimately, depth was an issue there, and depth and talent, but at the DB secondary spot. But back to this Texas game, it was one of those games where I was glad to see Arkansas not get blown out by 40. But on the other hand, in the flip side of that, it was a frustrating game in the sense of, we had all the opportunity in the world, to take the lead, potentially have the upset here. You don't put it up. You put up 0 points in the first half. Offense cannot get anything going. Second half, late in the second half, middle of the third quarter, you finally get some rhythm and you get some stops and you finally score. And then just a series of unfortunate plays takes place late in the game that, you have the Texas fumble that, of course, for Arkansas fans, it rolls out of bounds and we can't recover it in time. And then the flip side of that, you have, we fumble, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but just overall general thoughts, what did you think of this game and how Arkansas came out?
Yeah, so you kind of talked about a little bit about the difference in bye weeks. Whenever we went into the bye week after Tennessee, they didn't have anything to fix, right? They were feeling good. They were feeling high on the hog, pun intended. And then they just got, humbled against LSU. So going into this bye week, they knew they had stuff to work on, right? You don't know what you need to work on until you see it. So I feel like that's what happened, because I don't know why I gave up on them so early, but I was like, man, this defense is just going to crap. What the heck is Travis Williams doing? Like, I got to rethink how much I like this dude, all that stuff. And then he comes out and he pulls out a game like this, against a Texas team, like you said, beat the tar out of Florida, who, beat LSU this week. Like, what the heck? He came out and he held Quinn Ewers and, Ryan Wingo and all those guys that are such good weapons for Texas, held them to hardly anything. They all together, they had 315 yards of offense, and Quinn Ewers had 161 yards passing, which compared to, Taylor Green is only like 30 yards more, 25 yards more, something like that. Like, the performance they put on yesterday was great. Now, offensive side, that was disgusting. It's the worst game they've had all year, statistically anyway. 231 yards, total yards. That's not good. That's not good on any level. And it's not good compared to what we've been doing. Arkansas is, before the game, Arkansas was the 5th in total yards, offensive yards, in the country, right? 5th, number 5. And then they come in and Texas holds them to this. So, we talked about some decisions that they made, right? CJ Brown and getting the call late in the game like that and then fumbling. Now, obviously, CJ Brown's got a hold on the ball. At the same time, why are you putting the freshman in that situation? Now, like, again, I told you before this all started, I feel like it might be a Boobie Miles situation, so I don't put a whole lot into it, right? So, in the movie Friday Night Lights, Boobie Miles gets injured whenever another player should have went in, and then the coach gets blamed for all that. What I'm saying is there's stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about and we don't see. But then again, there are other guys out there that can take that pass. Satania, you have Jordan Anthony, you have other guys who have been out there and done it before that should be able to do it now, and they just didn't do that. So I'm kind of flabbergasted by it, that decision. And then we talked about Jordan Anthony again. It was a swing pass to someone. I'm not sure who it was, or anyway, it was a play to the outside, and they have him blocking, and he just totally gets blown up. And Jordan Anthony's like 5'10", 180 pounds, soaking wet. So it just doesn't make sense to put him out there on the play side when you're trying to block somebody. If anything, heck, make him run a streak or something. And especially because I think the DB was in press coverage anyway, so he's in man. He's going to follow him. I'm not sure why they didn't, I don't know. I'm not sure why they did what they did. It just didn't make sense at the time to me. So, yeah, it sucks. It sucks seeing them be such a roller coaster of a team. Like you see the potential they have. You see the sparks, especially with Taylor Green. You see sparks, and then you see what the heck kind of play was that, and then you also see that with decisions like, oh, that was such a great fourth down play against Mississippi State where they lined up in the eye and they threw they had one guy go out on a route and it was a touchdown. And then you had the decisions like you saw yesterday. So I don't know. It's just up and down, and it's frustrating because it's more frustrating knowing that they could be better than what they are.
Yeah, it almost seems like they can never find the ability to put both sides of the ball together at the same time. You come out and have great offense performances, and defense maybe struggle a little bit. And then like this game, defense comes out and plays its absolute mind out of its mind. And then offense just can't get anything going. I mean, you don't score anything in the first half. You hold them to 10 points, a touchdown in the first quarter on a busted coverage. And then a field goal, you force to stop and get a field goal in the second quarter. And you're down 10-0 at halftime. Like we talked about some of those plays, it kind of leaves you scratching your head. We kind of found the run game a little too late in the second half of the game. But I mean, the play before that play we were talking about with CJ Brown and Isaiah Satania wide open for a touchdown. It's overthrown. I've seen some say he slowed down before that, and that's when it was overthrown, or I don't know if it could have just been overthrown. I'd have to go watch that play again 100%. But, back-to-back plays that it just didn't go Arkansas's way, because you think at that point you look at it, Satania scores. It's 20-17. And I mean,
yeah,
you're right there. If defense can get you one more stop, you get the ball back with a chance to tie it or win the game. At that point, I would almost said you're this close with this game. Do you go for two and leave it down to you can either go down and win it with a field goal? I mean, there's a lot of outcomes you can look at this, but and then we had, earlier in the fourth quarter, you had, Texas have that fumble, which of course for Arkansas fans, it rolls out of bounds and, it doesn't go our way where we can recover it and, get a turnover. And I think that's part of it is the turnover battle. Arkansas had 2 turnovers, Texas had 0. The turnover margin, that'll get you every time. Taylor's pass in the first half, Pittman talked about in the press conference, it was a little bit tipped. And, those tip balls, they're going to get you every time when they're in the air. When the ball's in the air, not purposely thrown, nothing good ever happens there. And then, of course, you had that CJ Brown fumble. Again, the freshman kind of, from what you could tell, people were talking about not tucking the ball properly, kind of have it hanging out there where a fist can come in and knock it out, which is what happened. And then it, unfortunately, again, for Arkansas, bounced right into a Texas defender's arms. And, from that point, it was game over. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was even saying to myself not to appease the Taylor Green haters, but like I almost was asking myself at halftime, I was like, do you just come out and, insert Malachi Singleton just to see if he can spark something? Not saying that, oh, just benching Taylor and that's what it is, but just to see if maybe he can get something going, that Taylor couldn't. Sometimes changing up personnel can have that effect where somebody can come in and just generate a spark and, that's all you need. And, ultimately they chose to stick with Taylor Green, you know, for this coaching staff, he's QB1 for a reason. So I don't know. It's like you said, it's frustrating with a roller coaster of the season we've had. And, we see the potential of how good this team can be. And then on the flip side of that, we've seen how bad this team can be. Hint, Ole Miss, LSU type situations. And I don't know. You've got a big, and I emphasize, big game next week. In all terms, that's a must win. Like, should, but it's also a must win. Like, there's no excuses. So, you got to bounce back from this week. Yeah, you were close, almost upsetting Texas, the number 3 team in the country. Didn't fall your way, but, time to bounce back, get bowl eligible next week. We wish that's not what we're talking about, but I mean, Big Ben says here Taylor can't scan the field, old line can't block, wide receivers can't catch, DBs can't cover, and we fumble. Yeah, I mean, you look at how much of those things kind of depend on, that the O line and how they struggled. That's something we haven't hit on. They were struggling massively yesterday. I think part of Taylor not being able to scan the field is he didn't have enough time. We were talking about there was one specific play on third down there where, a Texas defender bull rushes right through the A gap with nobody blocking him whatsoever. But there's numerous times I saw, Texas beating us on the edge and just getting around and forcing Taylor outside the pocket. And I mean, we know that how good that they are in the trenches. I think you said it before we started here, Austin. It was, they have as good of defensive linemen as any in the SEC. Thinking about like what Texas A&M is able to do with their defensive line. So, I mean, that's where I was really getting frustrated yesterday. Is you look at it, the offensive line, like, and that's why, that could ultimately partially be the downfall of Sam Pittman is the offensive line. We've said it numerous times. You're the quote unquote O-line guru, one of the best in the country. And quite frankly, this year's, we thought there might be some improvement earlier in the year, but I mean, where we're sitting at now with 2 games left in the season, yeah, they're improved from last year, but marginally, not a ton.
Yeah.
You see flashes, but as a whole, if you put the season together as a whole, they've had some great flashes. At times looked really good, and then at times really bad. And then, that's what you got in this game was the offensive line that, seemed to struggle until late in the game, and we were able to establish a semblance of a run game.
Yeah. So, I'm not a fan of changing quarterbacks in the middle of a game. That's just because that's a gamble, a big gamble. Because if the other one sucks, then now you lost 2 quarterbacks because the other one's going to have in the back of his head that, they don't trust me. I don't care how good of a player he is. It's still going to be there. Whether or not he can overcome it is, whatever. But I, like, as a person, wouldn't want to take that gamble. But I get why people would want to do that. And the thing is, he came out and he played good in the second half. And I don't think he played horrible in the first half. Like you said, there's some situations that weren't good for him, but he did stay in the pocket way too long, way too many times. The thing is, he's here because he can do stuff with his legs, right? So do stuff with your legs. There was I don't know, at least 2 or 3 times that it just opened up. Like, it just opened up the middle of the field. And he's standing there for 3-4 seconds. And I'm like, dude, take off. Dude, take off. Did you watch any of the Clemson game yesterday or see any clips from the Clemson game yesterday?
I didn't.
Okay, so I didn't watch it either. I had my buddy who works with me over there. He covered it while I covered Arkansas because it's same time. But he was like, "Did you watch any of it?" And I was like, "No." So I watched the last few minutes, and the winning play was what's his name? Wow, Klubnik. At the 50-yard line, they do a quarterback draw at the 50-yard line, and he takes it to the house with like 20 seconds left. Right. And I'm like, Taylor Green's a better athlete than Kate Klubnik, right? Like, why are you not doing stuff like that? Obviously, that play was, designed, but he can do that on the fly. And I don't know if he's trying to prove that he can throw, right? Or he can, be that type of quarterback. But the thing is, he's here to use his legs at the same time, right? So you know what? You go 1-2 reads and it's not there, and you see the field open, go. You know why? Because whenever you do that, it's going to make the defense adjust to where those guys are open, right? That's why he's here, because you can either run it in gas you, or they can pass it and gas you. That's the whole thing about this offense. And I don't know why he won't take off, right? And especially he doesn't like step up in the pocket, which I wish he did more. He always wants to try and run outside. So I don't know, man. I still think he did okay for what he had, but same time, yeah, he takes a little too long to make throws and make reads, and I feel like he just needs to take off sometimes,
Yeah. And that's the thing that I noticed that that's a good point. I was thinking about that in the first half too, watching him play. He seemed very hesitant on just, taking off.
Yeah, and maybe his knees hurting him too. So,
well, and that's what I was thinking.
Again,
that's where I was going with this. Was that kind of made me think: is he 100%?
Right.
I mean, and you saw him make a little bit more decisive moves in the second half and run a little bit more and kind of put the team on your back in some big situations in the second half. But that's kind of what was going through my mind too. Is like, Pittman mentioned that he did go through all the practices, but he still had that probable designation going into the week, meaning there was still, maybe some nagging lingering from that knee. And I mean, from what I could tell, no knee brace, nothing like that. But yeah, that makes you wonder, was he 100% and then kind of just gutted it out in that second half and said, I got to do what I got to do for the team here and try to keep us in this game. That's part of it. Because, I mean, if you look at it against LSU, he played and started, but, it was very clear he wasn't 100% and he was staying in the pocket a lot more, very similar to how he did yesterday, and not necessarily flat out just, doing what we saw him earlier in the season.
Right. The thing is, like, and here's the thing. Just because I really like Taylor Green doesn't mean I don't like, Malachi Singleton. If Taylor Green isn't 100%, why don't you start him? Why don't you start Singleton? Like, he's not Malik Hornsby. He's not Cade Fortin or any of the other guys we've had the last 2-3 years. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why, if your quarterback isn't 100%, why you don't start the other guy, right?
Right.
And again, it could be, what's his name? It could be Taylor Green saying, I'm okay. I'm 100%. Let's go.
Telling the coaches, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that point, you got to be like, hey, you know what? What's actually best for the team? Sit out a week and get healthy, or, go out there and hurt yourself more. Like, and again, this is all hypothetical. Like, I don't know what's happening. You don't know what's happening.
Right.
But we know something's happening. So we're just putting out different things. So no one take this and run with it and say, oh, Hogs on the Hill is out here spreading rumors. We're not. We're just talking.
Just thinking out loud here. Yeah.
Thinking out loud. Like, I'm not I don't know what's going on. And that's the thing. And we probably never will know why coaches make their decisions, but still it's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, here's a good question here is, do you think Talon and Petrino's offense is the same as KJ and Enos's offense? And I'm going to say, I don't think so. Not at all. I think when
No. Yeah.
the whole KJ and Enos's offenses is the equivalent of trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Talon and Petrino's offenses, and as we know, we've established Petrino's offenses are very complicated offenses. They're not that easy to learn and pick up. So I think part of it is, even though you're 10 games into the season, there's probably no way you're 100% like have this offense up and down, front and back. I mean, Petrino mentioned it in the preseason. He said, as the season goes, you'll figure out what's, his playbook's big, but as the season goes, you'll take pages away. You may add some pages in, but once you get, part of the way through the season, that giant book is going to come down to, a much smaller set of plays that you're going to that works and you're going to stick to. And that's part of it too. If you, keep these two guys into next year, that playbook and that development is just going to be much better next year.
Yeah, that's the thing. And like I don't want to call for anybody's job, but I'm fed up with what's happening. And I'm not going to call for his job because I think that's a crap thing to do, but Sam Pittman just hasn't been cutting it. Right? There's something that with this, I wrote about it yesterday after the game. I said, Arkansas just doesn't have a clutch gene under him. And to be fair, they haven't had a clutch gene in a while. Okay. So that's not just a thing on him, but it's just like, that they're good and that they have a system. They just can't get out of their own way.
Yeah. When it comes down to a close game, like your point, you look at it, his record in one score type games, it's not great. I mean,
and it's not. It doesn't even have to be about those one losses because, like, you want to think about LSU. It wasn't a one loss or a one score loss, but they were within one score whenever Arkansas turned the ball over on the 2-yard line. So it's that clutch part of it. It's being able to do the plays and execute them when you're supposed to in hard situations. And they just, for whatever reason, they can't. And I don't know what the fix is. It's got to be cultural or like a philosophical thing. It's all mental because that's what it is. It's a mental thing. It's intangible, and it's hard to measure, but you can see over the years how many times they've just shot themselves in the foot. Right. And I feel like it's more than other teams because, everybody does it. It's about how you overcome it.
I was about to say, everybody does it, but you look at your top teams right now, even Texas, your Georgias, your Alabamas under Nick Saban. You very rarely saw them make mistakes. They still had them, and all these coaches were beyond frustrated on the sideline, rightfully so, but you didn't see them as frequent. The amount of times this year that we'll do something really good or convert on the third down or things like that and get out of a bad situation. Oh, there's a flag, holding, or on defense you get a stop, but face mask or pass interference, and then even though you stopped them, they get a first down anyway because you bailed them out with a penalty, and you weren't.
Or you'll back them up to 3rd and 26, and then you'll let them get a 40-yard pass on you. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's I don't know. And that's the thing is are we willing to get rid of Sam Pittman and not have the Bobby Petrino offense and then the Travis Williams defense back? And we don't know if we'll have them back in the first place, but if we get rid of Pittman, they're definitely not going to be back. I don't see how they could be back. So yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. I mean,
especially when you look at Bobby Petrino's record at Arkansas the last time, went 5-7, 8-5, then 10-3 and 11-2. Right? It took a while to get those guys up and running to run those offenses. So I don't know.
And maybe this is what you have to do next year. Is now that both those guys have been in the season in the offense and on this team for a year, open it up to a flat out quarterback battle. I mean,
Yeah.
once these guys have had a year in the playbook, now let's see who can just come out and operate it the best. And that's a good point. I mean, yeah, you brought Talon in because you lost KJ. You had kind of Malachi that's an unproven on the roster, and you bring in Talon that had some starting experience. But we've seen Malachi play this year. Was able to come in and get Arkansas the victory against Tennessee. With a lot of help. It wasn't 100% on him, but you bring with both those guys having some playing experience this year, both being under that Bobby Petrino offense. Say, okay, guys, going into spring here, it's wide open. Come show me what you got. And, Whoopig's right here. Either way, like we said earlier, Green will probably benefit from another year under Bobby Petrino's offense. And, just at what you hinted, 5-7 1 year, and Petrino's first year takes that jump to 8-5 next year. Not saying that's going to happen to this team, with Petrino just being the OC, but you got to think that with his complicated offense, if you give anybody more time to learn it with the talent that's there, Taylor Green is talented. Malachi Singleton is talented. They both have their pros and cons about, what they can do maybe a little bit better than the other and things of that nature. But yeah, you give these guys another year in the Bobby Petrino offense, and then in the spring practice, take the reins off and say, all right, one of you go out there and win this starting job. If it's Talon, he comes out there and, has the experience and wins the job, or Malachi just, says, okay, here's my opportunity to show everybody why I'm still here, why I stuck around, and it's my turn to get the start.
Yeah. And the thing is, this offseason, they're going to have to throw like all the available NIL money at offensive linemen, right? Like no more blue light special offensive linemen, right? They've got to get some guys in here who can match up with SEC defenses. And you kind of hit on it earlier. The only times we've really, really struggled against SEC teams are the ones that have really, really good defensive lines. LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, and Texas A&M. All four of them have elite guys up front. And you're
looking at probably several,
right,
top round picks too.
Right. And the offensive line, I don't think as a whole, like if you look at the season as a whole, have done bad. But the thing is, there's like a threshold of talent that they can go up against and look decent. Once you pass that threshold, they can't handle it. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but in high school, I crushed balsa wood structures to see how much they could hold, right? And with like 18 grams, we held 700 and 800 pounds, something like that. A nuts, right? A lot of weight. But once you hit that threshold, I mean, it just comes down. And I feel like that's what they are, right? They're structured in a way that they can take a lot, but whenever you get to its breaking point, that's whenever everything goes to hell, So I like against Missouri, I don't know. That's probably going to be the test to see if my hypothesis is correct, because I don't think they have a great defensive line. I don't think they're bad, but I don't think they're elite like the teams we were talking about.
Yeah, they're not Texas A&M, Ole Miss level talent.
Right. And that's the thing. I feel like if we would have had South Carolina, because I was looking at whenever they created the schedule, I was upset with how much it still looked like our old schedules, because the only thing different is we switched Alabama with Texas. Everything else is the same, because Tennessee would just be our other SEC East team, and then you have Missouri as the other, the one we play every year. So I I was looking at all those teams. I was like, why don't we ever get Kentucky? Why don't we ever get South Carolina? Why don't we ever get, Florida when they're bad, And I guess we kind of did last year, but we were bad too. But the thing is, like, South Carolina, they have a great defensive line. Like, if we would have played them this year, they would have smoked us, I feel. At least on defense.
Yeah. I mean,
their defense. So,
yeah.
And I feel like that's why it's so weird this year, because I feel like so many more games are being decided on matchups. It's more like basketball, because basketball, there's a lot of teams that will play each other, and you'll have this chaos like this, and teams will beat other teams because the matchups are better. Not saying that team's necessarily better, but if a team can't shoot threes, but a team's really good at guarding threes, they have a better chance to win. You know what I'm saying? That I'm trying to make the comparison. I'm not doing it eloquently, but still, I feel like the parity has created that in college football. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of, I like it. I like having the I like the chaos, like, just as a college football fan. It's just it sucks whenever Arkansas is not on the top of it. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, flipping back to what we were talking about a while ago with quarterbacks, the point here is, you got to think about too. Singleton did raise his worth this year with the film he has out there. If Green comes back, Singleton may not. That's a very real possibility too that we hadn't talked about yet. All these we're hypothetically talking about, but that makes you think too, because how much longer is Singleton going to wait? Because he waited his time under KJ Jefferson. Then you bring in Taylor Green, and he's having to sit another year. And, now he's gotten to play. Film's out there. Guys can see what he does. And, because he, if I'm remembering correctly, he almost left last year. But Pittman got him to stay. I think he was close to entering the portal last year, and Pittman got him to stay. And so now you got to wonder.
There was also there were like a lot of things happening with his mom on social media and stuff like that, and people, her saying something, and then the fans just going after her, and I'm like, like, that's somebody's mom, leave them alone.
Yeah.
It was just a whole bunch of drama, and yeah, they cleared it up. But yeah, like you're saying, there's no shot, or there's not anything that we can do about it, But what I would say is, like, look at where Garrett Nussmeier is. That guy's been at LSU forever. He's had to wait his turn forever. And now he's raised his draft stock. He's probably going to go in the first or the second or third round, probably closer to third round if I'm being, guessing. But that's what you would have to do. You say, hey, be patient, in a time like this. Look at this example where one guy was patient and it's helped him a lot. So that's what you would have to do. But I mean, other than that, yeah, I don't know how you can convince him to stay here unless you throw a bag at him. But
why would
other
you
people would do that
for
and
a
then
backup quarterback? Yeah,
right.
Unless
Like,
you're in the shoes that Texas is in, and you got Quinn Ewers, but then you also have Arch Manning sitting there in the wings, and
Mm-hmm. Well, Arch Manning's family's old fashioned too. I don't think they would ever let him leave because of that reason.
Just because, But just as like kind of an idea of a comparison, it's like most schools, Texas being different, and like you said, Arch Manning's family kind of plays in that a little bit in how they approach things. But most schools are not going to have two starting quarterbacks on the same team for more than a year. And that's the thing too. It's like we're saying if Green comes back, I don't know why he wouldn't come back unless he wants to transfer, because I don't see him going to the draft. I don't think he's ready. I think he's shown flashes of how good he can be this year, but still needs some more development. And all this could change. If we're talking hypotheticals here, you fire Pittman, and subsequently, you lose Petrino, and who knows if he sticks around.
Yeah, well, here's the thing too. Who knows if Singleton stays around too?
True. Or are you
because
starting from
like
KJ Jackson that's a freshman? Like, do you
yeah,
kind of
the thing is like I mean like if KJ or if Talon leaves, goes to play somewhere else, that means it's going to put Malachi Singleton in a spot with a new head coach and a new quarterback coach on a team that's probably going to suck, right? Whenever you get a new coach, you just automatically think, hey, probably not going to a bowl game. That's probably, where you want to reach for, but nothing too fast, too quick. And how old is he? He's going to be a junior, right? Why would he want to stay around with a team that's going to suck when he has little eligibility left? I mean, I think he's probably got 3 years left, but like when he can go somewhere that's good, who's going to give him a bag and
Malachi
he's going to
Singleton
play.
is a redshirt freshman.
He's a redshirt freshman. He redshirted last year. Oh, okay then. So he's got 3 years
redshirt
left.
sophomore next year.
Yeah, so he's got 3 years left because he doesn't get a COVID year.
Whereas you have Taylor Green that is a redshirt junior this year, so he'd be a redshirt senior next year.
Right. So, yeah, that's the thing though. Like, it depends on who they hire and whether he likes those people or not.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of people who are like, fire Pittman. And there's a lot of people who are like, no, we got to keep him for this. And I'm like, there's so many variables that no matter what you pick, whatever one you think is the good option, there's still potential for it to, blow up in our face.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what happens at the end of the season, whether we keep Pittman for another year, we fire Pittman, or, I've heard rumors that he retires, whatever happens at the end of the season and going into the offseason, you're going to lose players. I mean, that's just how college football works nowadays with the transfer portal and NIL. You're going to lose guys that, whether they actually should have or not, they think they should get playing time and are like, fine, I'm going to go somewhere else and, get what I quote unquote deserve. But you're talking about people wanting Pittman gone. I mean, you had a nice article about it yesterday, popped up yesterday before the game. We'll just pull it up here. This billboard on I-49 yesterday popped up with, "Thank you for 5 great years, Sam. A change is needed in order to compete in the SEC." We talked about this before the show.
Yeah.
I don't like that. However much you want Pittman gone, fine. That's fine. You have that right to your opinion. But to spend your money on a billboard on the side of I-49, I think that it was also said that this is positioned where the team would see it as well as they drive to the game. I don't know. Just not very, not a lot of class there, honestly. I mean, and you're welcome to your opinion. I'm not saying that you can't have that opinion. Fine. That's fine if you want to. But to go out and pay whatever it costs to rent a billboard on game day on I-49 where, the team bus is going to drive right by and see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I looked up how much it costs. It's anywhere from like, it's either 380 something bucks or 280 something bucks for a week for it to pop up every 4 minutes, or at the most it's like 3,600 for 4 weeks where it pops up every minute. So it just depends on what plan they chose. But I mean, still, you could be putting that into NIL. And I've been having arguments all day with people. They're like, well, if we get a new coach, we'll start going to paying NIL. And I'm like, no coach is going to want to come here who's worth, what you guys want to pay for until there's an NIL, NIL is situated, because no coach is going to want to come into the SEC where the average coaching life is, 4 to 5 years, and then have to build an NIL program pretty much for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
That's a suicide job. That's a career suicide. Coming
And then
here
on the
with
side,
no,
you have to worry about people buying billboards, asking for you to leave if you're not doing a good enough job.
well, I mean, I don't think they'd care much about that.
Right.
It's like you can see how the fan base isn't as serious about NIL as other fan bases. I mean, you have Ole Miss out there who is killing it. They are killing it. They are one of the poorest states. They are the poorest state in the country, right? Mississippi, and they have 2 SEC teams in that state. And you're trying to tell me people here can't do it either? No, you're not. You're not paying for NIL because you don't want Coach Sam Pittman here. But if you don't pay for NIL, you're not going to have a good coach. You're going to keep having Sam Pittmans over and over and over again until we have a good NIL fund. That's just what it is. It's an investment. And the thing is, fans need to start thinking of it as an investment instead of a product. I think that it needs to be improved, right? I think a lot, the collective needs to have better options for people, right? And then have better, I don't want to say prizes, but, stuff in return for it.
Benefits.
Benefits. Like Ole Miss does, they have really good benefits. But the thing is, we're not going to go anywhere unless we have that first.
Yeah.
Right.
So, had me curious. So I just, Googled it and looking up, this is according to On3, the top, 15 NIL collectives in college sports right now. Out of the top 10, how many do you think are in the SEC?
7?
A little bit less than that. 4.
4? Oh, quite a bit less than that.
So we'll just run through these lists real quick. Number 1, you have Ohio State. I'm not surprised. They always have good NIL. Number 2 is a little bit surprising to me. Tennessee. Number 2.
Not. Because, look, Tennessee is crazy, right? If you ever met Tennessee fans?
Fair.
Tennessee fans remind me a lot of ourselves. The thing is that they have a good football program right now, and Arkansas doesn't. So, so that it doesn't surprise me at all, especially since they have Nico Imaliava over there. See, I got it right. I can do it behind closed doors, and now I can do it in front of a camera. They had to pay him somehow, right?
Yeah.
So they've got it, So that's not surprising to me.
Number 3, Texas.
Not surprising, yeah.
Number 4, Oregon. All that Nike money.
Yep.
Number 5, Miami.
Not surprising, yeah.
Number 6, Ole Miss.
Yep.
And then at 7, you got Florida State, which is ironic with how bad they are this year, but
yeah,
that's a whole nother topic. Number 8, Nebraska. Number 9.
At the same that's surprising, but at the same time, it's not surprising because there's a lot of old guard Nebraska fans that are pretty wealthy. So that doesn't surprise me, but at the same time, they're not very good, so it surprises me. And it's also in the middle.
They had to get Raiola somehow, so
yeah, and they're still killing it in recruiting. They're not. Yeah. They're stealing guys left and right. So,
Yeah, number 9, you have Louisville. And then rounding out the top 10, Missouri.
Louisville? Missouri is more believable than Louisville. Really? Number 9?
Yeah.
That's football, right? It's not just overall.
Yeah, this is just not football specific, but overall college sports. And this says, what this article says is Louisville has emerged as one of the most well-funded NIL collectives, led by former Cardinal athletic fund Dan Furman. Says that their collective is called the 502 Circle, has between 125 and 150 athletes under contract. That includes the entire men's and women's basketball team. And it says the collective has one of the most robust budgets. Sources indicate that it be in the $20 million range for football and men's basketball combined.
When was that published?
Let's see. So this was this past August of
Past
24.
August.
So relevant
I wonder if they're taking in consideration Cal and all the NIL that came in after that.
I don't know. Let me see. I didn't go past 10. Let's see. See. So, yeah, like I said, 10, you have Missouri. Number 11, right outside the top 10, Texas A&M. 12, Alabama. 13, Michigan. 14, Notre Dame. Number 15, Arkansas. And
Arkansas number 15?
Yeah. And what it hits at is, like you just mentioned with Cal, raising NIL dollar remains a challenge for Arkansas when it comes to football. The article specifically says when it comes to football. However, it says, but donors stepped up this offseason to land John Calipari. Part of that came with opening up their pockets to ensure that Kentucky had the NIL dollars to spend on a roster. Multiple sources told On3, don't know 100% accuracy on this, but that Calipari is working with an open checkbook and will have at least $5 million annually, and that number could grow to $8 million per sources. So, and it says that would place the Razorbacks in the top of the sport, specifically basketball, where the typical Power 4 college basketball budgets range from $1 to $4 million. And then, as we were talking about, it puts Arkansas edge in the top here. But like the article specifically said, football struggles when it comes to football. But that's the key. Football is struggling. But if you want us to get to that point to be where basketball is, you've got to get more people on board to know that if you donate to NIL, that's going to help. And like you said, where that may be kind of taking notes from these other collectives, their quote unquote benefits or what they offer if you do donate, like, more than what we're doing. I know like the NIL collective did a big thing after the Tennessee game where they sold off, piece. You could buy a piece of the goalpost and that would go to the NIL fund.
Yeah.
Things like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get to do that all the time because you're not going to sell goalposts after every big win. That just doesn't make sense. But after a game where you rush the field, things like that, sure. Another one that comes to mind that I was thinking about and we're talking with somebody, if you redo the court, Bud Walton, sell off pieces of the court. Something like that, or when you do a renovation or something like that, like utilize what you got instead of, if you redo the court and get rid of some of that wood, what are you going to do? Just throw it away?
Right. And that's the thing.
There's somebody out there that's going to want a piece of the court, And
you gotta have somebody in the collective that's going to like be creative like that. Right. So I think there's work on both sides. And it's not really just the common fans that I'm talking about with NIL because, I can't afford very much. Right. There's not much that I can afford. I just, I write part-time and then I have my daytime job and that pays for my bills and my family and all that stuff. And I get it, but still there's a little bit that I can go. And that's all they're asking for. Now where we get the supplemented part are from the guys that are well-to-do, the ones that are holding back because they want somebody else. It's not for the, everyday type of people. So, and the thing is, if they're waiting for a John Calipari type of coach to come in and play or coach for Arkansas, they're going to be waiting until they're dead because it's not going to happen.
And that's what we talked about too. And I believe I said this last week is if you want that level of coach for football, that's where these big donors are going to have to, like I said, pony up and go, actually be willing to spend the money and figure out how to get it. I mean, that's what, happened with the John Calipari situation. They went and talked to him and, would see if he was interested. And then they found a way to come up with the money.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and the thing is, we talked about it a little before, but Cal didn't have to be convinced he didn't have to be sold the potential for NIL, right? Because he had pushing factors. Like he had pushing factors at Kentucky. They didn't really want him there anymore. I don't think he really wanted to be there anymore. He needed a change of scenery. So he's already looking for a way out. And then he found someone who could match what he wanted for, salary. But the NIL came later, right? He negotiated that with them. But the thing is, you're not going to have a coach in college football because there's not a coach in college football that is done well and is looking for a change of scenery.
Right.
Right.
Like the equivalent of Cal, and it could be a stretch here, is like saying us somehow convincing Saban to come out of retirement and coach Arkansas.
You know how many times he picks us on College Game Day? I kind of think he might want to come here and coach. It's
Talk
like
about pipe dream right there.
Yeah, no, I know for sure. I feel like if he had somebody to do all the NIL stuff, like he didn't even have to touch a finger on it, but he could still be like the manager of the football team, he would totally come back and play or coach. Especially at a place like Arkansas where there's not a lot of people breathing down your neck for wins. So but no, I don't think he will, right? That's not. No. I also didn't think John Calipari was coming here, so hey, but still, and then you got to think about it too. A coach is going to come in here and he's going to look at this NIL that we have for football, and then he's going to look at basketball, and then he's going to look at the salary basketball coach is getting, and he's like, well, you don't really care about football, do you? So why am I coming here if you're not going to, care about me? You're going to get these guys who are trying to get a leg up. They're trying to use Arkansas as a stepping stone. And if you don't want Arkansas to be a stepping stone, you got to play like the guys who are on top. You got to put your money where your mouth is,
Yeah, it's like if you want to play with the big dogs, you've got to roll with them. And, part of that is be willing to pay big money for a head coach to keep him here, not to be a stepping stone school. But then also, like we said, be willing to get the people in the state to care about football. I mean, people say they care about football, but I mean, it's relevant whenever, like, when Arkansas goes out and does all this for Calipari for basketball, it really makes you think. It's like, okay, will we do this for basketball? But, football's over here struggling, and, historically, well, I don't want to say historically. Historically, Arkansas has been majority of a basketball school, if you think about it.
I'd say from like the 80s to now, yeah.
Because you got to think you had the Nolan Richardson days.
I guess 70s.
Yeah. You had the days where you brought the title home and had several appearances with Nolan Richardson, and, football was just kind of always right there. And then, we brought in Muss, after, John Pelfrey and some of that little bad span there for basketball. You had Mike Anderson come in, get Arkansas back to a good, solid spot. And then you bring in Musman that catapults you to the next level. And now he got us there. And now I think the idea is you bring in Cal to take you to the top.
Right. And the problem is with this whole NIL thing is like you can't tell people what to do with their money, right?
Right.
I'm not trying to tell people what they're to do with their money. I'm just saying if you want Arkansas to work, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't care enough about it, then that's fine. Like, do you, man? Spend your money on all the billboards. I don't care. But if you are talking about how much you hate that Arkansas is losing like this, then you gotta choose one or the other, right? You can't just sit on the middle of the fence. And that's what we're doing. Like, we want to have it both ways, and it's not like that.
Yeah,
the world's not like that. We can't always get what we want. I'm not sure who's the singer of that. I wasn't born until the 90s, so I don't know that song. Or who sings that?
I'm not sure either. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, a good point here. if we're being honest, Arkansas is a track school. If we're being honest, with the amount of championships that track has won. So
The Rolling Stones. Yeah. I mean, for real though, if we want to talk about dynasties in college sports,
Arkansas track.
like easily probably top 3, right? If you're talking about like just the longevity of it and the dominance, it's up there. Now you can put Saban's up there just because more people care about it. But then again, what does he have? 7 national titles when Arkansas has 50 something? Like at one point, I think I was in high school. Arkansas had a third of all SEC national titles. That's insane. And it's a little unfair whenever you think about it because they get 3 a year for both men's and women's, so 6 technically. But if you cut that in half, you still have, or if you cut it in thirds, you still get around 15, 14, 15. So that's good.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about it and we'll kind of move on a little bit here. This is Razor recap. We did have football this weekend, but you know what else happened this weekend? Arkansas got a huge basketball commitment from an in-state recruit on top of Cal's already great-looking 2025 class, and that comes along the lines in one Isaiah Sealy from right here in Springdale, Arkansas's very own backyard. So, I mean, you look at, we get Malik Thomas early in the week last weekend, and then, this weekend you get Isaiah Sealy. The guard talent coming in next year is insane. And, there's people out there thinking that there's the possibility of a guy that's wanting to play with Malik Thomas. And I believe his name is Chris Sinek, a 6'11" forward center that, all these people, seeing, looking at, he comments, those 2 wide eyes, when Malik Thomas commits, things like that, people read into that. But I mean, you look at what Cal has done, and yes, this year's team's struggling, but I think that's going to get straightened out. We've talked about that. But
he's from Link Academy too, so that's where Jordan Walsh came from.
So some ties there to the program.
Yeah. I don't know if Jordan Walsh knows him or not, but we'll see.
I mean, there's always a different coach, but I mean, there's always, the potential to be, if he knows it, it's like, Jordan Walsh went to Arkansas. Let me just reach out to him. I know he went to Link Academy just like me. Let's see what can he tell me about Arkansas? I mean,
yeah.
Or even, the coach at Link Academy that coached Jordan Walsh knows he went to Arkansas, so.
But he's the number 1 center in the country.
Yeah.
So.
And, with back to Sealy, he's a 6'7", shooting forward, small forward, whatever you want to call it nowadays in basketball. But the number 1 in-state recruit, that's what you like to see, keeping those in-state guys in-state. And, especially when they're talented like this. Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, some of the guys that you're trying to go out there and get, like we talked about, Chris Sinek, 6'10", 230, the 5-star number 1 big in the country right now. And I mean, you look at kind of who he's down to and his recruits: LSU, Arkansas, Kentucky, Auburn, and Tennessee. I mean, when you're talking about NIL, that gives us, I feel like, a good edge if, he's, not saying it comes down to money, but, a guy like this that, you have the opportunity to play for a guy like Coach Cal, his repertoire, his record of getting guys to the league. But then you can come and make a nice little bag of cash while you're playing at Arkansas with its NIL collective. Why wouldn't you?
Right. Yeah, and it looks like if he were to choose Arkansas, he would beat out oops, went the wrong way. Yeah, he would beat out Malik for the third best recruit in Arkansas history. Which, if you don't know, if he were to do that, number 3, number 4, and number 5, and number 6 would all be John Calipari recruits.
And he's not even been here a full calendar year.
Yeah,
which is insane.
Because you got Boogie Flan and Darius Acuff. I'm sure where the emphasis is on.
It's
Acuff. And then Malik Thomas. And the first one's Nick Smith, which I don't know if they'll ever get a recruit better than that, like ranking wise. But
and you don't even know.
And the thing is, like, whenever you get up to that level, there's like very little difference, right? But it's just cool, to say, like, hey, he's brought in 3 of the top 5 guys in Arkansas history, and he's only been here a year.
Yeah. And the thing with Nick Smith, too, it's like you really wonder with him, it's tough because you have to play the what if game. It's what if he was healthy and played all season? Because we hardly got to see him in a Razorback uniform. And because it's the what if. I mean, I don't blame the kid for, trying to get healthy because, he's doing really well in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
But, imagine what that team would have looked like if he was, played a full season with Arkansas because, he came back and played right there at the end. But, I mean, you're not going to be in a groove like everybody else was and, been playing all season, kind of found your rhythm with the team and things like that, but don't want to dwell on that. But, yeah, like to your point, with him not even being here a full calendar year and what he's done with the recruits that he's brought in and have got committed for next year, like I thought it was pretty funny. Malik Thomas, after he committed to Arkansas, with Darius Acuff already being committed, he was like, next year our opponents better lace up their sneakers because you're about to go against one of the best backcourts in the country. So a lot of big talk from him, and I like the swagger a little bit.
Yeah, I do too. No, like if he can control it, that'd be great. Like, yeah, I've watched some of the little clips that they put out after what's the overtime elite that they put out after him. He committed, and boy, that dude likes to talk.
and
he's a mouthy guy.
Back it up. Yeah. That's where the key is going to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, from the talent that we're seeing on the EYBL circuit, like, this kid's going to be insane. And Calipari has some high praise for him too. So, I mean,
like there was one time where this guy called him a fake 4-star or something like that. He pulled a what's that dude's name from the Avengers, the bad guy? Thanos. He pulled a Thanos on him. He's like, I don't even know who you are. You know who I am, but I don't even know who you are. And I'm like, dang.
And
in the middle of the game too.
And I know that game or that clip you're talking about, and there's one point in there too. He was like, "Hey, get it right. That's 5-star."
Yeah,
but
I think it was the same clip. Yeah,
but yeah, so he's got that swagger about him. Whether now he can come in and kind of hold that up, that's going to be the real question. But I mean, more power to him. Hey, he's feeling confident. You want your players to be confident. So, and he knows what Coach Kaus, does, like we talked about what he does with putting players in the league. And that, if you read a part of his statement on why he said he wanted to come here, getting to come in and practice and play against, 8, 10 other pros makes a difference. I mean, you're day in and day out going up against somebody else that's more than likely going to be in the league. I mean, talking about this year, Boogie Flan's going to be in the league. He's probably going to be a one and done for Arkansas.
Yeah.
And
probably.
then
you might get Knoxon and Robinson. that his name? I totally
Richmond, Billy
spaced.
Richmond.
Richmond. I don't know. I said Robinson. Yeah, you might get them back still.
Yeah.
And I think they'd do a great job for one more year in college.
Because that's about the only true guys. Go
ahead. Because like I don't know if you're as impressed as I am with Billy Richmond, but I am super impressed with that dude.
Not a ton of minutes, but I mean, just the energy he gives you. Like, he gives you 120% the minutes that he does come in and play. I mean, we talked about it in the Baylor game. The grit that he's got, comes in, gets that technical, kind of sparks the team to fight a little bit harder. Even Cal said when he brings Richmond in the game and presses, he said, Billy Richmond's a one-man press. He said, I bring him in and be like, you press, and everybody else just, defend. And, he's that type of guy, that energy guy, that spark that can come off the bench. And his skills are going to develop as the season continues. I mean, and he'll probably see more minutes as we go. But, out of these three freshmen, like, you can tell Boogie Flan was the most college ready out of the three of them. And these other guys are still developing, really talented guys, but still developing and refining their skills a little bit. And I think as the season goes, you'll see an uptick in their playing time. And that'll come along with just the depth that Arkansas has. But, yeah, like you're talking about, the only three for sure guys you're losing next year due to eligibility is you're losing Nelly Davis, you're losing Jonas Adu, and you're losing Kareem Watkins, who is one of those kind of walk-on type guys. So you're only losing three guys.
Yeah.
And then say four if you're counting Boogie Flam, most likely. So you have the option. Carter Knox comes back. Billy Richmond comes back. They're probably starters next year. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of hype around here for good reason. I know people are frustrated that they're struggling right now, but, like I've said over and over again, even Cal said it, there's going to be a tough little learning curve in the beginning here. There might be some losses, but at the end of the day, by the time we get to late January, February, I think you're going to see a completely different team out there that looks much better.
Mm-hmm. I think that they aren't doing as bad as what we feel, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to think, like, they looked so polished against Kansas, right? And I get they didn't have Hunter Dickinson, but they had everybody else. They had all the guys that
I think they were missing one guard too.
Oh, well, yeah, but still, they had their number one point guard, didn't they? I can't remember his name, but he shot.
He's their leading scorer, yeah.
Yeah. So, still, they looked incredibly polished against them. And whenever they started playing other people, whenever people had film on them, there was a little bit of, of a drop in production because people knew what they were going to do. And it's how you respond to that adversity, right? And you can't just say, do it now. You got to do it in the game. No, sometimes you're going to lose a game. That's the way basketball is. But the more impressive thing is how they're going to change over the season. So I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm not, losing hope yet. If that makes sense, because I saw like how good they could be. And now they just need to know how to get around certain things like zone defense and stuff like that to be the team we think they're going to be. Like we've all said, they've only played together once, and this is it. Or I guess, 1 year. And they've only played in real games 5 times. So we'll just have to see.
I was about to say that consistency, continuity, and gelling of the team's going to come and get better each game. I mean, it just is. That's how it works. You think about a lot of these teams around the country, they've been together and practicing for, depending on what, like freshmen, and you think about returners, multiple seasons, over a year span, whereas you still look at the timeline, you're 7-8 months since Cal's got here, and when he got here, there was nobody here. So, say 5-6 months of this team's been together and building that chemistry with each other. So, for what we're doing right now, And, even like as ugly as the other night's game was against Troy, finding a way to win, that's what matters right now. And the rest of it's going to come later. I'm
Right.
confident. Like, Coach Cal doesn't have his resume for a reason. And it's not because he doesn't know how to develop or build teams. And you see him adjusting a little bit to today's time with working the portal a little bit, bringing in Jonas Adu and Nelly Davis, two of the biggest additions out of the portal. So it's going to come. He's not a Hall of Fame coach. He is a Hall of Fame coach for a reason. And, I think he's going to get those guys where they need to be once it matters, once we get to conference play in January, and then looking towards a tournament appearance and development from there.
Right. And I mean, you would think that Kentucky, and I hate using this term, but like they won a Super Bowl against Duke, the way that their fans just came after us, like great. Arkansas beat Duke in the non-conference last year and they sucked. So, you're not saying much right now. Congratulations, I guess, but it's the beginning of the year. We'll see you in March, maybe.
Well, I was about to say the big thing, especially referring to Kentucky, we'll see them in February.
Oh, well, that's true, but
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
but then whenever things start happening, that matter.
Exactly.
I'm not saying the game doesn't matter, but we'll see if them, Calipari can't, do it in March, like they've been telling us. So
yeah, that's true.
But I am a little bit concerned about depth, right?
That's the only thing that's got me is when you have 9 bodies that you realistically rely on, and then you have Brazil go down and could miss time depending on how the severity of his ankle, and you're still having Jonas Adu recovering. It's like let's get some guys healed up. These next handful of games before you have Illinois on Thanksgiving Day. To continue getting better. Until you get to those big games when hopefully guys will be healthy. Not saying Jonas Adu's not. Calipari's straightened that out. He said he is 100% healthy. You just got to remember, like Cal said, he missed 5 weeks of practice, so he's still getting into game shape, whereas everybody else is in that game shape. So, once he gets there, and he's about 70%. So, over the next few games, you'll probably see some increased minutes, hopefully. And then by the time some of those bigger games, Illinois, Miami, Michigan, he'll be able to contribute more minutes. But
yeah, and I think until we get to those big guys or those big teams, I was thinking big guys because I'm talking about Ivisic. I think until we get to those teams, Ivisic will do fine in the post. Like I bet he could play if he can physically do it. I bet he could play probably 30 minutes or so a game. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to. Unless he can't physically, go out there and do it. But I'm not worried about him against smaller teams like Troy. Yeah, I'm worried about him against big teams like Illinois and Michigan. So
yeah, Big Ben's point here. Hopefully it doesn't come to this, but yeah, that would be the saddest part of this team if we never see their full potential because of an injury bug. So
yeah,
but again, big weekend for Arkansas basketball as they get another recruit, and I'm sure we're still not done yet. It'll be interesting to see because this was just early signing day. You still have your regular signing day later on, and there's guys, handful of guys that want to wait till their regular signing day. So, yeah, and probably the truest statement that we'll ever talk about. Pigpen says we all agree Daddy Van Horn probably deserves that natty the most. I gotta agree there. As long as he's been here, the tenure, the program, the things that he's established here, we got to get him that natty.
Daddy Van Horn. That's hilarious. But yeah, no, he like if in a perfect world and we could only do one national championship apiece, I'd probably pick baseball first. just because I feel like they deserve it the most. And then I'd go Arkansas, or I'd go football because it's been longer, and
I was about to say,
that would make me
basketball
more
has the 94.
right. So I would say because it's been longer, and it would make me the most happy, than basketball. So that's my order. Now, my order of who will get one first, I would say probably basketball, baseball, football.
I was about to say
Like
that Pigpen asked that question. He said, "Do you see Cal or Van Horn getting the Natty first?" That could be a close one. That really could.
yeah,
With part of it depends on how much longer Van Horn's going to go, because he is getting up there. He's getting grandbabies that he's wanting to spend some time with. But in the back of his mind, he's going to be a Hall of Fame coach, 100%.
yeah,
But you got to think in the back of his mind, he's scratching, being like, how long is it going to take me? Like, can I get that, natty in the next few years, and then kind of retire on top, if you will? Like, get the natty. Like, I'd be like, it wouldn't surprise me. Hypothetically, Arkansas wins the college baseball World Series this year, championship. Dave Van Horn hangs it up. Wouldn't be surprised one bit.
yeah.
Because you got to think that's the only thing he's lacking as far as accomplishment in the world of college baseball, because the amount of kids he's sent to the pros, the numerous number one recruiting classes he's had, all those things he's accomplished. Coach of the year numerous times, SEC coach of the year, winning SEC titles, conference, tournament, that one thing that has the asterisk on that resume is a college natty. And
Yeah.
I feel like if he were to get that sooner than later, he's like, all right, I'm done. I accomplished everything I wanted to. I'm at the peak of the sport, unless he really thinks, okay, this team, I can get enough of these guys come back next year and not go pro, and we might can repeat. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's you have a national championship team. A lot of those guys are going to get drafted pretty high and not turn down that money.
The problem with baseball is just it's fickle, right? There's just so much that can go wrong at any point. And I know they do series, but it still doesn't. I feel like you still don't get like an accurate picture of who the best team is in the country. Like Arkansas, hands down, was the best team in the country 2 years ago, or was it 3 years ago? I don't remember. But they were hands down the best team in the country, and they lost in the Supers, right? Yeah, it would be 2021.
Just because it's all because of one game.
Yeah. And then the next year they make it to the World Series, but then they lose in the first series, the first round. So
yeah,
it's
very
hard. Yeah.
Out of all the sports, yeah, that's the point. Baseball, at the end of the day, there's only one, but also, if you're off just one game, that could be the difference maker right there.
And that's why I say basketball instead of football or baseball, because basketball, you can usually see who the better teams are. And then when you get to the Elite Eight, Final Four, you have more. I feel like you have more control over who wins and who loses. In baseball, it's just up in the air,
Well, and too with baseball, I feel like compared to like basketball, it can happen a little bit in basketball, but if one singular player in baseball has a really good game or a really bad game, that's all the difference it makes. You have a pitcher that he has a bad first 4 innings. It's over. It could be over. Whereas like basketball, your best player is not having his best day. Well, somebody else probably could step up because and yes, you have multiple pitchers, but I feel like.
Yeah, but if your pitcher gives off, gives up 8 runs in the first 2 innings.
Yeah.
My thing is, it's also
harder to come back from, when you think of runs compared to, okay, like Baylor, they made a, 10, 11 point run, but we can come back from that easier than it is to come back from down 8 runs in baseball, because runs are much harder to come by.
Right. And the thing is, you could be killing someone. You could score 2 runs an inning, and you keep them scoreless. And then in the 8th inning, they just go off. I mean, that's what Arkansas does, right? They're not very consistent. There's not a whole lot of games last year or in the last 3 years where they're like, 2 runs here, 3 runs here, a run here, 2 runs here. It's like, hey, look at this inning where there's 7 runs, and then 2 innings later there's 8 runs. They just go off at certain points, and it's hard to gauge that whenever you're talking baseball. Basketball, not nearly as bad, but still there's some variance in it.
Yeah, 100% there. Yeah, got a little off topic though, but overall, rounding things out here, big must-win game for Arkansas this coming week for football to get that bowl eligibility and make some postseason things happen. And then you got Missouri at the end of the season, which I would love to get a win over. Basketball back in action tomorrow night in Bud Walton against Pacific at 7 o'clock. Soccer won their first round of the NCAA tournament, and they will be hosting rounds 2 and 3 this week, where Arkansas will play Cal on Friday night, and then the other game happening will be Stanford and UConn, and the Sweet 16 will be on Sunday of this next week. So, get out there and support these girls. This soccer team is doing fantastic. They had a 4-0 victory in round 1 over Oklahoma State. So, they got beat out early in the SEC tournament, but, when you're SEC champions in 2019, 20, 21, 23, Colby Hale's doing his thing. I mean, at some point you feel like you got to get there, and, this year's squad has the chance to get there. So, a lot going on this week. Get out there. Big game tomorrow night. If, like I was talking about on Twitter the other night, if you're not using your tickets, please, please, please get your tickets to somebody that will use them. Let's pack Bud Walton. We need all the people we can get there to get there, regardless if we're playing a team like Duke or even if we're playing a team like Troy. We want to get as many people there to support Coach Callan and these guys as we can. So
heck, I'll take your tickets on Monday.
Exactly. I was like, we'll go. I was about to say, if you're not going, we will go. But yeah, so until then, we'll be back this week to preview the matchup with Louisiana Tech, recap you on the Arkansas basketball game versus Pacific, and keep you updated on any other Arkansas news we have. So until then, we'll see you later in the week.